The most insane actor ever. Klaus Kinski by FilmStack. We're gonna look at this. Let's see how insane that man truly is. I want some insane asylum level shit. Here we go. I am infinitely curious.
One of the greatest actors of the century, but also a monster and a great pestilence. These are words used by German director Werner Herzog to describe Klaus Kinski, a German actor he frequently collaborated with and somewhat of a friend. An actor so controversial with his emotional and violent outbursts on film productions that even a whiff of his antics in our current culture
Do I know this man from somewhere? He seems familiar.
Would have had him cancelled and without a career instantly. And this is by no means a jab at cancel culture, as the stories of Klaus Kinski we're about to tell are truly despicable.
He sounds familiar! I have seen this man from somewhere!
A person so fueled by rage throughout his career that on separate occasions an indigenous tribe offered to kill him for Herzog, a producer contemplated having him
He's a German actor? Then that's the reason why I know him from somewhere. I just can't pinpoint which movies.
Killed for insurance money, and even Herzog himself threatened to kill him when Kinski went too far. And after his death in 1991, many more revelations and accusations came to light about past productions and relationships with his daughters. But who is Klaus Kinski? This is actually a surprisingly difficult question to answer. His career ran from 1948 to 1989, appearing in over 130 films.
Okay, I don't see anything.
Most notable of these were his 5
This Nosferatu. Ah, okay. Okay. This movie seems very much familiar. And this also. Obviously, I know what Nosferatu is about, but I haven't watched this one. But this one seems familiar, and these two.
Collaborations with Werner Herzog and his small role in For a Few Dollars More, the second film in the Man with No Name trilogy. Aside from film,
that movie I know, okay.
He's also done a lot of theater plays, released over 20 spoken word albums where he recites poetry, and did a one-man show theater tour titled Jesus Christ Savior, where he monologues as Jesus. More on this later though. Many of his antics were known publicly at the time and gave him a cult favorite status that helped promote some of his later work. Kinski was born in Poland to Polish-German parents before they all moved to Berlin in 19...
Makes sense, Kinski. That is certainly a Polish name, yeah. I was thinking about watching some movies with him. I just haven't gotten around to it. Okay.
1931. Kinski described his childhood as extremely difficult with poverty-like conditions during the Great Depression. In 1943, at the age of 17, he was conscripted to the German Armed Forces during World War II as part of a paratrooper unit, but didn't see any action until the winter of 1944.
Oh yeah, that would definitely fry most brains. Okay, yeah. That's already one reason why he ended up the way he did.
Stationed in German-occupied Netherlands, Kinski was captured by the British Army on the second day of combat. But in one of his memoirs, he claimed that he deserted the German army, was recaptured by German troops, and sentenced to death before escaping and hiding in the woods before being shot and captured by the British Army. As a British prisoner of war, he acted in shows put on by fellow prisoners, officially beginning his acting career. But a lot of this wasn't true, according to Werner Herzog, who mentioned this in his 1999 documentary, My Best Fiend, a documentary about Klaus Kinski and their collaborations, which will be referred to a lot in this video. Herzog claimed that Kinski fabricated a lot of his 1988 autobiography, and that Kinski was actually raised in a financially stable upper middle class family, as his mom was a nurse and dad was a pharmacist. And thank goodness his memoirs weren't entirely true, as they were quite sexual, with claims of maternal sexual abuse and
okay, never mind, he lied. Okay, well, also,
incest. Part of why his memoir
No, ooh. Well, here we go.
Was so full of lies was because he believed that no one would read it if it wasn't packed with controversy. That scum only want to hear about the dirt. He told this to Herzog when questioned about his constant trash talk towards him in the memoir, that no one would read it if he wrote that they got along. which we'll soon see would have also been a lie. The other reason for his fictitious memoirs could have stemmed from his mental illness. That is
the dog.
It's also a valid reason for his ridiculous outbursts on film sets. In 1950, Kinski stalked and eventually tried to strangle his theatrical sponsor, which put him in a psychiatric hospital for 3 days. Originally thought to be schizophrenic, Kinski was then diagnosed with psychopathy or antisocial personality disorder. This was a difficult time for Kinski as he struggled to secure film roles and even attempted suicide twice in 1955. He had much better luck in the 60s and 70s, starring in many European B-movies, or what we now
European B-movies. Okay, interesting. He isn't a very good-looking guy. This is coming from me. Well, he is particularly... I wouldn't say he's particularly ugly. I wouldn't say that. It's just probably that he ages like milk, it appears.
Now call straight-to-DVD films. His most notable roles in the 60s were small parts in Dr. Zhivago and For a Few Dollars More, where for the latter he took part in after moving to Italy in the late 60s. In Italy, he appeared in many spaghetti westerns, earning quite a bit from them even though his roles were pretty minor. Eventually, he was persuaded to come back to Germany in 1971 to perform the Jesus Christ Savior show in theaters. It was to be a 100-performance worldwide tour with much of the anticipation for Kinski coming from the reputation he cemented through his spoken word.
Like, I wouldn't say this is ugly, right? I wouldn't say this is ugly. However, he has sometimes, probably his looks don't really fit him at all. Also, I'm pretty sure that man took some stuff. I am pretty convinced that this man took some stuff.
Albums. The show would have Kinski recite his 30-page Jesus Christ Savior text that is a modern retelling of the Gospels where he recites them as if he himself was Jesus. It was Kinski's interpretation of the New Testament, but when performing in West Berlin on November 20th, 1971, things got out of hand quickly. The crowd was hostile, partially due to thinking that Kinski was proclaiming himself as a new Messiah. With an audience of 3,000 to 5,000 people, Kinski spent much of his time ranting and cursing at the crowd. Jesus isn't named Kinski, comedian, caviar chewer, champagne guzzler. For 10 marks you ought to give us more were just some of the insults from the audience. Kinski quickly dropped his Jesus act as he became an enemy of the theater hall after numerous violent interruptions. Dirty so, vermin, shut your traps. Those of you who don't belong to this rabble, throw the others out were just some of his rebuttals. He even had people come on stage and criticize him as he continued antagonizing the crowd. The show ended with chants of Kinski is a racist, followed by chaos that needed police intervention to stop the event. Kinski ran backstage.
Well, is Kinski a racist? I'm interesting. Well, that is interesting. Well, it wasn't really smart because, let's face it, doing that in front of a crowd, maybe he should have come on stage and maybe said, yo, I'm not proclaiming that I am like Jesus. I'm just like speaking like if I was in that position. I don't know. I've seen Dr. Zhivago. I think it's called Zhivago. I could be wrong, or however you spell it. I think my mom has seen it.
Like he did many times during the show, but this time breaking down in tears. Eventually, he continued to monologue for a small group on the side of the stage. This is one of the only times I sympathize with Kinski, a misunderstood performance that would even make headlines in the New York Times as Berliners enraged by actors' portrayal of Jesus. But this sympathy wouldn't last long, as his Jesus Christ Savior tour would be cut short and he'd move on to his first Werner Herzog collaboration, which is a monster of a film production story itself. Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski made 5 films together: Aguirre, The Wrath of God, Nosferatu, The Vampire, Wojciech, Fitzcarraldo, and Cobra Verde. It's during the making of these films where the craziest Kinski stories came from because of how well they were documented in Herzog's My Best Fiend documentary. Their relationship dates all the way back to when Herzog was 14 and Kinski was either 29 or 30. Herzog's family was living in one room of a boarding house that Kinski also lived in.
Okay, where is this going? How crazy is this man truly?
They were together in that house for 3 months. Apparently, Kinski filled his room with leaves up to his knees and had constant rampages. When the owner...
Who doesn't do that? I see no issue. Who doesn't do that? I occasionally do that. I don't collect leaves though. I collect twigs and I just stack them up. I don't know. That's crazy. That is crazy. That is crazy.
The house ironed his shirts wrong, he went on one of these rampages.
Bro, I wouldn't want to deal with this man in autumn. I wouldn't want to deal with this man in autumn. Bro is collecting all the leaves.
ripping doors off hinges and destroying furniture even though he was being fed there for free. One memory Herzog remembers vividly was when during one of these tantrums, Kinski locked himself in the bathroom for 2 days and destroyed all of the porcelain into pieces so small that Herzog claims you can sift through them with a tennis racket. Another of Herzog's memories was when a critic who saw Kinski in a small role of a play was over for dinner. The critic praised the actor for his performance, saying that he was outstanding and extraordinary. So Kinski thanked him for those kind words. Is what he would have done if he was normal. Instead, he threw 2 potatoes and whatever cutlery he had at the critic and exclaimed, "I was not excellent, I was not extraordinary, I was monumental, I was epochal." With stories like these, it makes you wonder what went through Herzog's head to—
Bro was mad at being glazed. What the fuck? Confession, I collect pretty feathers. That's fine. Feathers is fine. But bro was filling his room with leaves like up to his knees. That's not normal. And crashing out over being glazed is also funny.
Want to work with Kinski at all. But it all comes down to talent.
Oh well, not glazed enough.
Something that we can't deny Kinski had. When Herzog was 15, he saw Kinski in the war film Children, Mothers, and a General, and was so impressed by the way Kinski acts in a scene where his character wakes up. This scene stuck with him and was the catalyst for casting Kinski in the first place. We'd then go on to get 5 crazy film productions with the 2 of them, some more infamous than others. Everyone who worked on these productions hated Kinski and would almost form a mutiny whenever they heard Kinski was on board for another. It would get to the point where actors took a lot of pleasure in harming Kinski whenever it was called for in a scene. But okay, enough pretext to these productions. We begin with the first film, Aguirre, The Wrath of God, released in 1972. Aguirre, The Wrath of God was an epic historical drama with Kinski in the lead role. He played a Spanish soldier in the 16th century who led a group of conquistadores down the Amazon River in search of El Dorado, a legendary city of gold. Filming took place in the Peruvian rainforest in Machu Picchu and on the Amazon River. It would be a difficult 5 weeks of filming for the cast and crew, and it wasn't because of the environment, but because of Kinski. Kinski calling Herzog to—
That's crazy. If the environment causes less trouble than one of the actors, that's crazy.
Accept the role after receiving the screenplay was the first time the 2 of them had talked since living together. And this call consisted of over an hour of inarticulate screaming before Herzog even realized who it was. Kinski just came off the Jesus Christ Savior tour and was acting like Jesus during filming, answering as a misunderstood Jesus. This misunderstood Jesus quickly turned into a fueled by rage Jesus when things didn't go his way. Right from the opening scene, Kinski already had a problem with not being the center of attention, as Herzog had in mind a very distant shot of them walking into the intro. The 2 of them also argued about how Aguirre, Kinski's character, should be portrayed, with Kinski wanting him to be a wild ranting madman, whereas Herzog wanted him to be more quiet and menacing. Herzog ended up getting his way by intentionally infuriating Kinski before each shot, and then waiting for the anger to burn itself out before rolling the camera. But
it's kind of funny. Huh, interesting. He forced the director into giving him what he wanted. Okay, well, that's, to be fair, that's slightly a problem also with the— Why would you pick a man you can't work with?
But infuriating Kinski ended up being a simple task for Herzog, as
They both just yoink that monkey.
Kinski was always infuriated. There were times when Kinski forgot his lines and looked around for a victim to blame, like a cameraman smiling so he could start a fit. These rants sometimes went on for hours, often yelling inches away from people's faces, usually Herzog's. One time, extras found food near the set, which infuriated Kinski for some reason, so he started flailing his sword around at them, even hitting one of the actors on his helmet extremely hard. Even with the helmet, he suffered a lot of bleeding and would have easily died if he had not been wearing one. In the My Best Fiend—
That's crazy. This man is insane.
Documentary, Herzog talked with this actor about how aggressive and cold-blooded Kinski was, and the actor showed that he still had a scar from that hit. Another time, some extras and—
Wait, I didn't even see that. Hold up.
With this actor about how aggressive and cold-blooded Kinski was, and the actor showed—
Yeah, you can see it. There's like a dent here. This part. Yikes.
Showed that he still had a scar from that hit. Another time, some extras and others were relaxing at night, having drinks in a hut, playing cards, about 45 of them all cramped in it. Kinski became furious with the relaxing and drinking, so he took a gun and shot at the hut 3 times. Luckily, among all the chaos, only a fingertip of an extra was shot off. It could have easily been much worse. The climax of the film's production occurred when a technician made Kinski mad and Herzog refused to fire him when Kinski demanded it. Enraged, Kinski threatened to leave production, packing all of his things in a speedboat and was ready to go.
Yeah, this man is clearly insane. clearly insane, and the mind of a child, kind of.
Knowing Kinski's reputation with breaking contracts, Herzog took these threats seriously as a lot of filming was still left. Herzog told Kinski, "You can't do this. The movie is more important than our personal emotions, even more important than our persons, and this can't be permitted. This simply will not be." But Kinski persisted on leaving. Herzog replied with, "If you leave set now, you will reach the bend, the next bend of the river, and I will shoot you. We'll have 8 bullets through your head, and the last one is going to be for me." Although Herzog didn't have a gun on him, Kinski took these threats seriously and began shouting for police, calling Herzog a lunatic. But there was no police station within 300 miles. This encounter made Kinski very disciplined for the remaining.
Bro is like, "Police! Police! Where are you?" What the heck, bro? This guy's special. This guy is special. Why have I never really heard of this dude?
Days of the shoot. The film went on to have poor box office numbers in Germany, but became a cult favorite in Mexico, Venezuela, and Algiers before
Mexico and Algeria. That's interesting. That is very interesting. Huh. Well, I'm not surprised it would fail in Germany.
getting theatrical releases in other European countries and a US release later that decade. The US and UK loved the film, praising Herzog's vision and Kinski's acting, and it currently sits at a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Not bad. As a German, you claim him? Nah, I'm not claiming that, man.
The next two Herzog-Kinski collaborations wouldn't be as eventful as the first, but that's not to say they went smoothly. They included his usual tantrums, but nothing went to the extreme. Nosferatu the Vampire and Wojciech both released in 1979. The former had Kinski play Count Dracula as the lead, and the latter also had Kinski in the lead role as Franz Wojciech, a soldier who took a job taking part in medical experiments to earn some extra money. One of these experiments had Wojciech eat nothing but peas for his diet, and he soon goes insane because of it.
Nothing but peas? Ugh.
This was based on a stage play and not something that Herzog came up with himself. For Nosferatu the Vampire, Kinski often argued on set, but surprisingly got along with Reiko Kruk, the Japanese makeup artist in charge of applying the Dracula makeup. These 4-hour-long makeup sessions went smoothly with no classic Kinski outbursts. The film released to great reviews, with the praise going to both Herzog and Kinski, and currently sits at a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. Just 5 days after finishing the work on Nosferatu
Again, not bad, not bad.
the Vampire, filming began on Wojciech. The crew was still exhausted from the previous production, but luckily it doesn't seem like Kinski caused too many problems, at least nothing worthy of reporting. In fact, Eva Matz, the actress playing opposite of Kinski in the film, had some good words to say about him. She claimed that there was a calm, warmer side to Kinski, and that he was always very professional and good towards her. Matz also said that on the last day of filming, when she started to cry that it was all over, Kinski hugged her, saying that he knew how she felt. Herzog also admitted that Kinski had a human warmth to him, but one that can quickly turn into an abrupt
Human warmth. Yeah, human warmth that can quickly turn into anger. Be honest, after hearing the actor was very unhinged in real life, what made you want to see his movies? I don't know. It doesn't really cause that for me. Not really.
abrupt rage. Wojciech also released to great reviews, sitting at 85% right now.
Again, not bad.
But it was Eva Matz who received most of the praise. For her role in this film, she won the Best Supporting Actress Award at the 1979 Cannes Film Festival. After these two films, Kinski had the opportunity to play the lead villain role in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He refused the role though, apparently telling Steven Spielberg, "This script
Oh no, that would have been interesting though.
is a yawn-making, boring pile of shit and moronically shitty." In 1982, the next Herzog-Kinski collaboration.
Damn, bro. Imagine somebody tells you your idea is hot as. Interesting.
Fitzcarraldo released, and its production would be as insane as Aguirre's. Filming took place mostly in Peru, confirming that you don't just need Herzog and Kinski for it to be a controversial production, but that it also needs to be in South America. The entire production was problematic, even earning its own documentary, the very well received.
So, maybe it's the climate. Maybe it's the climate. Maybe it's the climate. Maybe it is. Maybe it is the climate. Maybe it's the climate. At least it would be curious if I would see the unhinged side of his roles, or if he's too good as an actor and hides it all. Maybe.
Received Burden of Dreams. Indigenous extras were used for this film, with several of the ones who were hired as laborers getting injured or even dying. 2 people took arrows to the throat and stomach when a group of scavenging tribespeople launched a hit-and-run raid on the film production's camp. Luckily, they survived. There were also 2 small plane crashes that were carrying people to the film set, resulting in 5 critical injuries, with 1 being paralyzed. And many injuries occurred when working with the ship they used for filming, which was vital to the film's plot. But with all these issues they've already had to deal with, Kinski added his own on top of them. He continued his hour-long tantrums in this production, but they started to really show how much of an egomaniac he was, how much he needed to be the center of attention. Anytime there was a serious accident, which there were a ton of for this film, Kinski would see that he was no longer important at that time and throw a fit. One time, a lumberman was bitten by an extremely venomous snake while cutting a tree barefoot, which is...
And bro crashed out over that, right? He must have. That's a good thing he wasn't in Indiana Jones. That would have been controversial. Does it really matter? Does it really matter? Like, so many old movies are controversial. Not only that, they literally get like trigger warnings before they start. At this point, does it matter?
A fairly rare occurrence. It would only take a few minutes for cardiac arrest to occur, and the camp with serum was 20 minutes away. So after only a few seconds of thinking, he took the saw and cut off his foot. Back at camp, all the attention was on treating the lumberman, which irritated Kinski. The same thing happened with the plane crash that was bringing 6 people to the production. Kinski saw that people lost interest in him for that moment, and he threw a fit because his coffee was only lukewarm that morning. He was more short-tempered than usual, arguing constantly with Herzog and the crew. We even have some of these tantrums well documented in My Best Fiend, where we see Kinski raging at the production manager over...
Again, I'm assuming, see, there's 2 things in common. The climate twice. I guess you can't go to was it South America with Kinski? Because he's losing his mind.
Trivial things like the quality of food. Although we only see a few minutes of this in the documentary, it went on for much longer. We'll include a link to the tantrum in the description. These tantrums reached a boiling point with Herzog, to which Herzog planned to set Kinski's cabin on fire while he was asleep in it. He said he would have done it, but Kinski's dog outside his hut barked whenever Herzog approached. You might...
Wait, so bro is literally admitting that he would have burned him to the ground if it weren't for the dog. That's crazy.
I think that this was a bit extreme, but they had a unique relationship, and the feelings were pretty mutual. At the Cannes premiere of My Best Fiend, Herzog said, "We had a great love, a great bond, but both of us planned to take each other out." But some people on the set of Fitzcarraldo were even more serious about taking Kinski out. The indigenous actors were very disturbed by Kinski's bizarre...
You say your mom gets angry? Yes, she does. Maybe they're... Nah. Anyways, see, that's a true frenemy without the friend part.
Outbursts. They were afraid of him, as they are often gentle with each other, even when conflicted, but Kinski was very physical and vulgar. It came to the point where the chief of the indigenous people offered to kill Kinski for Herzog, and he was dead.
That is still crazy, bro. That is still crazy. I offer it for you, for free.
Serious. This happened towards the end of shooting, to which Herzog replied, "No, I still need him for shooting, leave him to me." Herzog exploited this anger the indigenous had for Kinski for one of the scenes where the natives were around Kinski while he's eating, and you can see the true anger and tension on the extras' faces. After filming was wrapped up, the chief told Herzog that the extras were afraid, but not of Kinski shouting, and instead Herzog's silence during all of it. Fitzcarraldo released to good reviews, with a 77% on Rotten Tomatoes today.
Damn, a 92%, wow.
And is beloved by many. Before moving on to the next film, we wanted to list 3 more facts about this production. 1. Kinski wasn't even originally supposed to be in this film. Jason Robards was already cast as the lead, but he fell ill. Then Jack Nicholson was considered before finally landing on Kinski. The crew were definitely not too pleased.
Should have gone with Jack Nicholson at this point. Why did you not go with Jack Nicholson at this point?
To be working with him again, especially since 40% of filming with Robards was complete, so they'd have to start from scratch. 2. Kinski always claimed to be a nature man, to be one with nature. He really hyped up how fascinating the landscapes were where they were filming, but he barely set foot in the jungle, always staying in camp unless needing to film a scene. But one time he went 100 feet into the jungle on his own time, and you bet he brought along a photographer to keep up his nature man persona. And 3, during one of Kinski's rages at Herzog...
So he lied about being into nature. I want to watch that movie, okay. I don't know if I'll watch any of these. So he claimed to be one, but he's not really.
Herzog went back to his hut in the middle of the tantrum, grabbed a chocolate he was hiding that people on his production would have fought for, and ate it inches away from Kinski's face. Kinski was so confused that his rage fizzled out. Before the final Herzog-Kinski collaboration, Kinski played the lead role in a horror film titled Crawl Space, released in 1986. The production was so full of Kinski's usual antics that director David Schmoller released a short film in 1999 where he described all the issues he had with Kinski. It's definitely worth checking out, sitting at just under 9 minutes, and Schmoller recounts the filming in a
I'm assuming that the filming was more of a horror than the actual end result.
Very entertaining way. Link is in the description. Crawl Space's lead role was written for Kinski with no one else in mind, but Schmoller had no idea about Kinski's reputation for being difficult to work with. Before filming even started, Kinski already threw a fit over the wardrobe they gave him, so he went out and bought his own clothes, of course charging it to the film and then keeping them afterwards. What a guy. For the entire shoot, Kinski clashed with other actors and crew. Many of these clashes are shown in the short film. By day 3 of shooting, Kinski started 6 fistfights with crew members and caused significant delays to the schedule. Schmoller and the producer
started throwing hands with the team. That's crazy. Yeah, he is definitely one of the more crazy actors I've heard of.
Agreed that Kinski had to go if they wanted to finish the film, but the distribution company paying for the film insisted that he needed to stay, so they continued filming. On day 4, when Schmoller came to the set, the film's Italian producer had a smile on his face because he figured out how to solve their problem with Kinski, that they would kill Kinski for the insurance money, and he was completely serious about it.
That is wild. That is wild. That is wild, bros. He has so many ops. I watched that movie. It was pretty bad. He was creepy in it, though. Yeah, no surprise.
Schmoller was worried, so he called the film's American producer with this info, to which the producer replied with, "Bummer." Not actually committing to the plan, on day 5, Kinski found out that they were going to fire him and he declared war on the director. But Schmoller was determined to outlast Kinski since directors quitting on him was fairly common. Soon after, Kinski threw a tantrum, screaming about directors yelling action when starting a scene.
Action.
So they eventually agreed on saying Klaus instead. A day and a half later, the same tantrum happened, but this time he was screaming, "Klaus, Klaus, Klaus. All my life, directors have called Klaus." But something had to be called by the director to start filming the scene, to which Kinski replied, "Say nothing and he'll start when he's ready." 3 to 4 times a day now, the crew started whispering to Schmoller's ear, "Please kill Mr. Kinski." Everyone reached...
Bro has generational ops. That is crazy. How many ops does this man have? Wow.
Their breaking point with him, but they still had to endure. Close to the end of filming, Schmoller said cut to finish filming a scene, and the same screaming occurred. Cut, cut, cut. I made over 2...
What is that scream? Like, you could add that into Roblox, no issue.
200 movies, and directors are always yelling cut. When asked what to say instead, Kinski responded with, "Don't say anything, I'll stop when I'm finished." On top of all of these requests, Kinski also refused to say any lines he didn't like, to the point where scenes didn't make sense anymore. Crawl Space released very negative reviews with 17%.
Yep, that is in fact really bad.
On Rotten Tomatoes today. In a 2011 interview, Schmoller stood by his words in the short film, saying that he didn't exaggerate anything. It was all well documented and that Kinski is responsible for his own myth making. But it really makes you wonder, how many more undocumented controversial Kinski moments there were when making other films whose production stories weren't as public. A year later, in 1987, the final Herzog-Kinski collaboration would release, Cobra Verde, where Kinski plays a slave trader who travels to West Africa. Filming was done in Brazil, Colombia, and Ghana, and it was this film where their conflicted relationship peaked. This film's production problems weren't documented as well as the other, but Kinski's wrath was so unbearable that Herzog vowed to never work with him again. The outbursts were so frequent and violent, giving us the iconic image of Kinski clutching Herzog's throat on set. The film's original cinematographer, Thomas March, received so much verbal abuse from Kinski that he walked out on the project. But the film released to great reviews and currently has an...
Yeah, but it's not due to What the fuck? That combination is just crazy. Like the director and then Kinski, that combination just makes good movies for some odd reason.
82% on Rotten Tomatoes. In 1989, Klaus Kinski would release his first and only self-directed film, Paganini, in which he also had the lead role as the 19th century devil violinist. Kinski repeatedly asked Herzog to direct the film, but Herzog refused, believing the script was unfilmable, although I'm pretty sure he was just done working with Kinski ever again. Actress Tosca d'Aquino had a miserable experience when making the film. About the production, she said, "I suffered the harassment of Kinski's very difficult nature. Going back, I would not make this film because I suffered a lot. He was a very violent man. I had a complicated relationship, he was bossy, I had bruises." The film released to mixed reviews and would be Kinski's final film of his career.
And I think that's the good thing. At least the movie was short. Okay. That is the... Yeah, there's a reason why it was short.
On November 23rd, 1991, Kinski died of a sudden heart attack at his home in California at the age of 65. Kinski was a cult favorite due to his spoken word albums and some of his on-set antics that were public at the time. But it wouldn't be until 1999 when people really saw how insane Kinski was on set with the release of My Best Fiend and Please Kill Mr. Kinski. For some, these new
That scream.
documented film productions made Kinski even more of a cult favorite, but the glorifying of Kinski after his death was too much for some to handle. Of Kinski's 3 children, only his son Nikolai attended his funeral. Both his daughters, Pola and Nastasia, were absent, and it wouldn't
Understandable.
be until 20 years after his death in 2013 where some new revelations came out that would explain why. Pola Kinski, Klaus's first daughter and also an actress, released an autobiography titled From a Child's Mouth, revealing that her father sexually abused her from ages 5 to 19. She
Orbit cannon.
couldn't deal with the praise and worship her father was getting when no one knew the truth behind what kind of person he was. Nastasia supported Pola's claims, calling her brave and saying, "My sister is a heroine because she has freed her heart, her soul, and also her future from..."
Yeah, Rebozo, 100% he would be cancelled today. He would be in jail today. I don't know. 100%. Cancel's not even the word I would use for this man.
The weight of the secret. Nastasia said that her father never sexually abused her, but that when she was 4 to 5 years old, Kinski would embrace her in a sexual manner. She described her father as an unpredictable tyrant, and she always feared him. Klaus Kinski as an actor is a touchy subject with everything that was revealed following his death. There's no denying that he's an extraordinary actor, but also that he's a cynical, short-tempered egomaniac. With just the onset issues, it might be okay to look past them, but the sexual abuse allegations helped completely tarnish his legacy. But this is where it becomes difficult and where separating the artist from the art comes in. Just like Woody Allen and Roman Polanski, you can still enjoy their work without respecting them. And by boycotting Kinski's filmography completely, you'd be robbing yourself of a few astounding films, especially the Werner Herzog films, who isn't a saint himself, although relative to Kinski, he was. Maybe we'll make a video on him in the future. And also keep in mind that there were hundreds of people putting in a lot of time and a lot of effort to make these movies, not just the 2 of them. But we want to hear, what do you think about this subject? Comment down below. So that's everything. Thanks for watching. We really hope you enjoyed this lengthier video of ours, and trust me, there really was no way to shorten this video because of how crazy the career of Klaus Kinski was.
Screw, man. That guy is a confepedo. That's crazy. It's just, like, insane. It is insane. This dude is wild. This dude is genuinely fucking insane. Wow. I didn't expect this man to be this crazy. Okay. Okay, yeah, that's why I'm glad he wasn't in Indiana Jones. It makes sense now. That's a good thing. Imagine, yeah, it's rough, but yeah, that was insane. I didn't expect to. That's once again, I'm German. I don't claim this man. I don't claim this man. Don't think the Polish claim this man. Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe.